Hey friends, Heath Home here. How are we doing? A very warm welcome back to the channel and welcome to another Sunday live stream. Today I'm going to be picking up where I left off in last week's video, the live stream, finishing off the arrangement of the track I began 2 weeks ago now. So this whole project started as a new music idea. So we'll kind of have a little bit of a project that you can follow along, new music idea. Then last week I moved from the session view to the arrangement and started arranging the track. So today we're picking up into the second half of the arrangement. And we're going to be focusing on things like tension and release of the parts we have, automation, transitions. So I've plugged in my trusty MIDI controller to do a little bit of live automation. And of course, as we do here on the channel, I'll explain what I'm doing along the way. So whether you're completely new to music production and Ableton Live, or you are a seasoned pro, I'm sure there'll be some things you can take away for today's video for everybody in the stream. In the end, the goal, as always, is to inspire you to boot up Ableton and go and make some music. Of course, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat as we go, and I'll do my best to answer them. So without further ado, let's dive in. And of course, quick one as well, if you are here in the live stream with me, feel free to say hello as well and say hi to each other if there's more than one of you in there. And yeah, just enjoy yourself in there. It's a nice space to be in. Feel free, as I said, to ask any questions. There's no such thing as a silly question or anything like that. Every question is valid. And yeah, let us know where you tuned in and listening from and that kind of thing. How long you're doing music, what's your favorite music, things like that. That would be great. Xavi Diaz, good evening. Great to see you there, my friend. Buenas tardes, ¿cómo estás? All right, so let's have a little recap, let's say, so we can pick up a little bit exactly where we are and then we can move on. So last week, if I move the loop around a little bit, we got from the intro of the track all the way along here to, let's say, the start of the main break in a couple of hours. And today the objective is to finish the track off. And I have put a marker all the way over here, number 20. The idea here is kind of where I imagine a little bit the track will finish. So yeah, I'm going to need to do a little bit of stretching perhaps of the track and move it out a little bit as when I recorded it over, which you can again, as I said, check in the video of last week's live stream. I'll put a card up here at the end of today's video that you can go somewhere here. Now you can go and check out last week's video so you can catch up to where we were. And yeah, I recorded it over. This is the rough sort of skeleton or framework of the track. And as I said, I put this marker here the other day, 20, to give myself a guide as to where I want to go. So I will be lengthening, stretching a bit of what ended up happening in this area here. So for a recap, let's maybe start from the beginning of the mid drop. Our intro section over here we'll revisit in the future, but pretty happy with how we're going so far. The clips along the top here in this white MIDI track, that's a system I've used and I've sort of explained it here on the channel. If you haven't seen that before, I basically use an empty MIDI track and the MIDI clips to write myself notes. It's kind of like, think of it like a notepad. It's just an empty MIDI track with MIDI clips, and inside those clips I just kind of write myself things to do in the future. So these are tasks that I haven't done yet that I'm planning to do, and I keep adding things there if they spring to mind. So marker 6, let's play from there, get a feel for how it sounds, also check our volumes and things like that and see where we are.
My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He said that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement. Constant, total amazement. Constant, total amazement.
So there's a little bit of a familiarity run through of what we have so far, bearing in mind, again, it's a music idea, move to the arrangement. We're trying to get the framework and the structure of the track. We are building little FX parts. We are adding a bit of automation. There's no mixing yet here. There's no real big separate large amounts of automation, just some things that I was doing in real time as things happen. So again, I really do strongly recommend checking out last week's video, and you'll see me making these downshifters, upshifters, little reverse clap ideas, and filling in the blanks to how we got to where we got to. So now what I want to do in this main break is kind of build out the tension here. So I like the idea of the main break being about the length that it is. Maybe as part of stretching out the track, I might extend this peak, doubling the length of it, because that is the main sort of energetic part of the track. So that might end up being extended a little bit as a part of the extension of the track, but we'll see about that later. But for now, I do like the kind of energy that happens there. So let's sort of work on this bit by bit from the very beginning, connecting what happens at the end of the peak into the start of the main break. What are we going to carry on through with? What are we going to remove? How's it going to feel? So what have we got in here high energy wise? We've got the cabasa. So maybe start with all the percussion out for a second here. And we might try a theme that we already have set up in the past here, which is with the kick drum. Previously, I've automated a filter in some sections turning on and off. That allows us to have a kick drum going through certain sections of the track, and it is automated, so it's a thinner kick drum. So if I copy a little bit of that over to here, whoops, we want to make sure we don't do that. So what we can do is actually unlock the automation as well. There's a little padlock over here, and then what I want to try and do is copy this over. That's better. Drag over both. So let's just see what that sounds like, and maybe we would extend it a little further. Just testing things out here, right? This is all about sort of trial and error, see what it feels like. I think it's quite nice not having too much percussion in here. We've got the bass, we've got the clap coming over, and we've gone straight from the full arpeggio into this kind of reduced melody. So I quite like that for the moment. Now, I wouldn't want that to go on too long. I think it's a nice kind of transition. So what I already want to do, I don't want my cabasa to be off here as well, so because it's playing before the break. So we're just going to mute that area. We're just going to highlight that area of cabasa and zero this clip out so we don't hear it. Zeroing it out is always good, my friends, because we can bring it back in if we need. So that's, if you don't know that trick in Ableton Live, that's just simply the zero on your keyboards. Highlight, zero it out. That doesn't delete it. It means it's still sitting there. We don't hear it, but we can bring it back, right? Now we've got the cabasa in here, right? So we fixed that up. The bass line here switches to, in the clip, it says analog only. So we've got some sort of automation that's been going along the way here. And one of them is turning the, because it's a layered bass line, it's two synths that I made. It's an operator layered with an analog, and they sort of switch on. So at some points in the track, we have just the operator. So that's just the operator bass on its own. And then we get to about here, we've now got the two, right? And in this case, we're kind of actually suggesting it's just the analog. So let's bring up the automation for that and have a look. So analog mixer, there it is there where it's switching on. Great, so we know that it's kind of carrying through to where we need it to carry through in this area here. So what I'd like to do with the analog is try a little bit to see if I can kind of filter it away a bit further. Now I could try that in the instrument itself, but what I might do in this case, as the filter in the synth here that I'm using is actually a notch filter, so it's kind of giving the synth a bit more character rather than it being like a high pass, low pass filter. So I'm not going to automate that. Instead, I'm going to use Ableton's audio effect, auto filter, and I'm going to take the filter frequency knob here. I'm going to use that. So let's just bring that in, and we're also just going to turn on and off this device first of all as well. So we're going to automate that. We're going to make sure that it just switches on where we need it for now, and we'll add a lane for that. So that's just the filter turning on, and we could actually reveal all of these. It's often a good idea. So the operators in general revealed, let's reveal the analog as well and put it down here so we can kind of make sure that we are aware of everything that's going on in there. Strongly recommend doing this. And yeah, I think we can now kind of see pretty much what we need to see down the bottom there, right? So here we've now got the auto filter. Let's now do the filter frequency. Same thing, give it a lane, and let's do a roll off of the highs. So nice sweeping down. So what I might do is I might be a bit led by what I've decided down the bottom here. So I might just try something a little bit fun here. That is sort of like bringing this over to line up a little bit with where these synths change. So it's kind of going to fade out the same point as that. Let's try that a bit. So following kind of what's going to happen in the track in a little bit of time, let's just make sure that everything is going to work in that case. So this one is the analog. We need to extend all of that, including the filter on and off. By the way, if you're joining the live stream, welcome. All about Ableton Live. We're arranging here or finishing off the arrangement of the track, tension release, storytelling, automation is going to be happening today, including with the MIDI controller. And yeah, let us know how you're doing. Say hi. Hope you're enjoying the content on the channel here. I'm going to mute the vocal down here for a moment. Right, so what I might do, because I've just kind of realized as we're going along here, is actually it isn't the operator only. I can hear the operator doing its thing there. So let's try it again now with the operator out. Nice, a lot more tension out of that, right? It didn't sound bad with the operator, but let's check the transition. But I think thinning it out, filtering it down, it did sound nice with the filter. I could also filter over both basses in this area. Yeah, I quite like that for now. Okay, so we sort of need to smooth that out now. So we've got a new synth coming in here. it's sort of in the middle of this section. So maybe what we might do is again sort of even this out a little bit so that it kind of makes a bit more sense. Again, remembering that this was recorded over, and when we do things like that, you know, it's a bit of feeling and different things involved, but it's not set in concrete. It doesn't have to be kept that way. It's just how it happened at that time, and now we can sort of massage that and change that, because I'm thinking pretty much I want to come almost all the way over to this drop here and make it a nice long break of, how many bars are we sort of doing here? We're doing 4, 8. So that's sort of 16 bars there, right? So it'd be a 32 bar break. Let's see if that's too long, but we can feel it out as we go. So maybe somewhere there, we could start with this new synth, and we might bring in something that we've used before. We've got this little motif over here. We could try that, a little end to a section, and we might also filter this down. Yeah, that little motive kind of helps. Might do a little filtering in or out here as well, just to sweep it a little bit. And I think we could almost have all of our little transition effects in here as well. But the bass and the kick just stops. The bass filters its way away. Quite like that. Okay, so maybe we don't need that. Might be a bit too much in there. So I've just noticed as well, as we sort of work our way through the track, what else was playing. So we actually have the Atmos carrying through here as well. And we're just going to check what that is doing as well. If there's any automation happening that we could make that work a bit differently, because again, it just sort of stops in here. Do we fade it out? Do we keep it going? What does that sort of feel like? So I kind of like where we're up to here. So let's carry on. And by the way, as this is the main break, it's kind of like how I'm working through it. I'm kind of connecting to the peak and what happened before, and now I'm sort of working my way through it to the exit and then the drop. And this is how it kind of works when you're break building. When you're trying to do this, you're trying to build as much kind of tension and interest in here as you can with the parts, and make decisions and decide what's coming in, what's going out, and how it's all going to flow. So let's try this maybe out here, coming out. So we're almost down to silence at this point. So what I think I would do is actually, so let's stop that. So what I actually like the idea of doing here is I'm going to extend this all the way through to the drop, the Atmos and its gate track that's making the little gates work on the track. And what I'm going to do is kind of ebb and flow it a bit in this area. So let's have a look at that. So we've got an auto filter that we've obviously used already previously. Let's have a look at what we've got going on with that. We probably have frequency involved somewhere, which we do. So we've got it sweeping down already at some point. So maybe where we're sort of, this new synth is coming in here, we might even sweep it, let's say, more aggressively down, and then I'm going to use it as part of the build back up to where we're heading. So let's fine tune that a bit. So I'll leave a marker here because I quite like that point. Yeah, I think around here it could be just starting to fade back up. So let me tweak that around a bit. Okay, so now as we get up here, there's plenty of things to come out here because they're not going to belong where they currently are. So what we might actually do here as well, just having a look. So all of those clips there, let's just put that back in, bring that over, bring that over, bring that over. So just take me a second here to adjust this a little bit. Let's have the kick drum just across to there. The bass line, just going to do it manually as I kind of feel I'm going to get what I'm looking for by doing it manually. Okay, all of that over. The claps may remain a little bit where they are. So if we're stretching that out, yeah, they are in the same position, so that's good. So we might use all of those. We might reevaluate what's going on after. So we might have a little break in here somewhere with this clap area. The cabasa, let's look at when the clip starts. There. Just looking at the loop starting point, so we're just going to drag that over as well to line up with the drop, and then the cymbal hi-hat track is kind of looping in that shape there. So let's select all of that, bring that over to there, almost there. Woodblock coming back in might be quite nice, might keep that idea, and then all of this arpeggio, move that over a bit, and then we'll sort of work on this area in a little bit. Similarly, at the moment, I haven't reincorporated the vocal, which I think could be a nice idea in here in the break, but let's try and get the synths working in this area here to nice and smooth. Okay, so we're getting there in terms of the little build back up. And in this little build back up, we could do a few things. We could have a little bit of hi-hat energy maybe in here as part of the build back up. But at the very end in here, I'm going to zoom in and have a little look. We've got this little clap fill. I've now added a reverse clap, but we might, if we do incorporate things like the hi-hat and the percussion here, try and get some of this out at the very end. Might not be a whole bar, but we'll just see what we can remove there, because the more we remove here at the very end of the break, the more energy we're going to have when it drops, the harder the drop will hit. And that's just basic break building in the sense of the energy. The more energy you take away here at the end of the break, the more the start of the drop is going to be slapping whatever language you want to use, it's going to hit hard. It's not going to be a track playthrough. So that's something that a skill that you could really learn about break building, because a lot of people have too many things here, too much energy here, and it just feels like those elements just were playing and they just keep playing through. We're trying to create a big contrast to that. If we've got a break, the break needs to break things down, feel interesting, highlight what happened before, highlight what happened after. It needs to make sense. Otherwise, it's just taking up real estate that we could be just playing the track through. We don't have to have a break. So also with the Atmos, I want to sweep this back out at the very end or take it away. So yeah, what could be interesting here, I like the way it was sweeping there. We might have a little bit of delay. Do we have any on the track? No, we don't. But we could use a little bit of Ableton's delay return here, just to delay this atmosphere into this space a bit. And then get that off. So let's maybe just quickly listen to that in isolation. So we can fine tune it. Right, so we could even go a little bit more in here. Just to fill in that last little bit there, so that could work to build a little tension there. And let's add in our other parts. So we've already got some auto panning automation of the wood block, and we've kind of used it before in the end of a drop with some automation. So maybe we'll copy a little bit of this automation that I've already got over here on the wood block and try it out. So it gives us really nice movement of that around our heads. Could be interesting. Right, and now finally with the synth itself, and maybe this is the last note here. So again, we don't follow it all the way through, we change it slightly. Right, and we could even try something else here. We could split the clip here, make this little end new, and then we could try maybe a pitch down. Idea 1. Right, so again, it's little things like that, just thinking about that's going to be different. It highlights this transition, not only in all the other parts, but also now in the synth. And maybe the other thing we could try here is to take these chords away here, but we could also try extending it all the way. Right, and maybe just, it doesn't have to be all the way, we'll just take it away for some beats, just to give us a bit of space. Nice, so let's try that. And now we can step back, and that's sort of the end of break. Now, again, we don't have the vocal in here, and I was thinking to use it. So we could use maybe this little idea here. Again, that happened earlier in the mid drop. So if we copy that over, into this area here. Sorry, not quite there. It needs to be further along, maybe around. Let's just make this track a little bit taller. And we need to bring it in maybe around about there. That's pretty much the right spot. We've also got the automation then copied over as well, pretty much. We'll just check that out. Okay, and we'll just see what that sounds like. Might have a little play around with it, but let's just try out this idea. Need to come out of solo. So in here, I'm going to ignore that for a moment, and I'm going to try this little idea here with the vocal. So again, just hearing something that could work nicely here. Let's try it.
Constant, total amazement.
And we could repeat this.
Constant, total amazement.
And we could try the full vocal over here. We could try it. Might be a bit too much. And we also, I didn't use, so when I've got my constant, let me just check it here.
Constant, total amazement.
Yeah, I believe it's automation that's different between the two clips. Yeah, it's a rising automation. So in that case, those two clips are kind of repeating the same phrase. Let's see if it's too repetitive. So what we might do is just copy this little bit here.
Constant, total amazement. My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to.
Yeah, it's a bit too busy there, I think. So, well, hang on, let me just try it again. It's a bit too much.
Constant, total amazement. My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He says that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement.
Yeah, I'm not sure if someone's here in the stream. Maybe you could let me know. What do you think? Do you like it there? I mean, it could also be here at the beginning of the break. So after we have the vocal here. So it could come in here.
Everybody you talk to, he says that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement.
Because I think I'm inclined to maybe do it that way. And then I'll use this more delayed version again, automated right at the very end.
Total amazement.
Okay, so I'm just listening to the automation on the Atmos. We're going to tweak that slightly. So let's bring that filter up there. It's a bit too quiet.
The whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He said that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement. Constant, total amazement.
Yeah, I actually kind of prefer this a bit more present than I had it. Just keeps the energy rolling in here a bit better.
Constant, total amazement.
Now let's maybe bring this cymbal in a bit more gently as well. And again, we've got the option to do that via automation we've already created in the past, which is again, when we'd be going along with this and sort of speaking about it. Sorry, Charlie Diaz, if the Vox later, more tension. Yeah, well, it's too busy for me. That's the full vocal. So what I've kind of done is that's the whole vocal take, right? For me, I've just at the moment used another one where I've chopped it and added the delay. And what we could do as well is bring the amount of automation of the delay sort of gradually building up. So we're going sort of down, up, up to build up the tension. So maybe in the middle here, instead of 100% on the delay automation, we just bring it down, and we could do the maths here, 65 to 100, halfway between there is 35. So we're talking about sort of 17 on top of 65, somewhere around sort of 80-ish. So just testing out my brain today on a Sunday on the maths. So let's just say we make this one a little build, but not as strong a build as we do at the very end. But yeah, thanks for chipping in. But you know, in the end, I guess what I felt is that is unnecessary at the end of the break. It's just swallowing up a lot of energy and making things too busy. So yeah, it now comes a little earlier, and we've got this kind of cut of it delaying into that space. So let's see how that goes. We can always tweak that again at another point. And then with this cymbal, we've opened up the filter. We're going to turn it on and off here to 2 Hertz. What do we actually go down to as low as? So it's at its lowest. So maybe we actually, excuse me, also just need to check another thing, which is the speaker on, because again, this is another layer, and it's another one where it's going on and off. And so this is the cymbal layer on. Let's try it off, because then it's just the hi-hat layer. So what am I talking about? Similarly to the bass, I've got a double layered instrument rack of a hat and a cymbal layered, and I'm just simply turning one on and off at different times and then having the two together. I think it's quite a nice way to work for building up tension and so the cymbal, so that turns the cymbal off. I've got it right. So that if we have the cymbal off here, why don't we hear the hi-hat then? So the hi-hat should be there. So it must be then that the filter is affecting that. So let's just try that. Yeah, so all I need to do is just adjust the filter a little bit here.
father says that almost the whole world is asleep.
Right,
Everybody
so
you know,
last
everybody
run
you see,
through for
everybody you talk
now
to.
of the pre-break and then the peak into the main break. Let's kind of have a little listen and feel it out.
My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He said that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement. Constant, total amazement.
So I might, just listening back to that, feeling things out a bit, I'll bring this a bit further forward and have it really filtered out earlier. So we're going to keep the cymbal out of action, bring this right over. Just bring that hi-hat in, but bring it in very, very gradually. So let's try 210 here.
Constant, total amazement.
Okay, more down.
Constant, total amazement.
Right, so we've listened to that a lot of times, pretty cool with that. Now let's take a look at the other side of the break here. So let's look at how we're kicking back in when we get to the other side of the break. Definitely kick is going to come in. Bass line should be, in my opinion, we're not going to need just, we could try just one of the basses on its own, but in general here, I think we would be going for the layered bass. So this clip that's labeled 1 is a different MIDI clip to 2. We've got a layered bass, we've got some different clip options. Let's say right here though, at the very end of the break, I think I want to come in with all guns blazing. Generally what you would find is at this point in time in a track normally, you're going to be very similar to whatever the energy is all through this peak area here, right? If you, again, sort of a little bit of hints and tips here, if you don't kind of maintain that energy, you can also have a very, very flat section here, which doesn't really work very well if you sort of go down here. It's not really a time to generally strip things down unless you're coming up with some sort of very creative kind of arrangement where you obviously can make it work. It's not a rule. But in this case, generally, we often mirror this section here very, very similarly. We could have a few instruments in or out, or extra layers or less, but it's normally around the same sort of energy. If we're trying to say there's a formula, it's normally like that, as I said, unless you've got some very creative arrangement going on, or, excuse me, you've got lots of parts to work with and you just decide to sort of go about it a little bit different in terms of your energy. So let's get our layered bass working here. So we want, the kick is fine. We've got that there, just making sure that, yeah, I'm just going to start my kick off with the pattern in the right way. So we're not coming in halfway through or anything odd like that. Yeah, under there, it must be correct. Perfect. So layered bass clip also, just to check, does actually start from that loop. So let's just drag that over. Okay, and now we want the analog then on. So we're going to have that layer on. How long we carry it on for, I'm not sure. We're also definitely going to have the operator in, as that's the two layers. Maybe we'll switch that off there, just for now, matching the analog. And then what else have we got? We've got that. We got actually, that's the auto filter, so that's fine. I'm going to be using that. It's switched off here, which is the reason for doing that. So those two are done with for the moment. They might come back. So let's maybe drag the analog automation above, the automation of the operator above, and the filter frequency here of the operator, that might also reappear, same as the filter that I've got over the analog. So those are there. The clap is coming back in, the cabas is coming back in here, and the wood block, and then the arpeggio. So let's hear what that sounds like, and also the Atmos is here. And what I kind of am thinking to do here, so maybe we'll have about 16 bars, and then I might make a little bit of a bridge in this area here. And I want to try and bring back the original melody that was produced at the very beginning of the track, in its very, very beginning state, that actually isn't currently playing. And so it might be nice to reincorporate that. There's a funny story behind that where I sort of removed it and then realized that I found myself in the kitchen later on, kind of, it was stuck in my head. So it hasn't made a reappearance in the track. It's this track down the very bottom here called Melody, but I think in the bridge section it might be time for it to reappear, and we'll see if we can reincorporate it. Because like I said, I took it away, kept the ARP, had this kind of pad type synth that joined up with the ARP, but in the end, the main melody of the original idea hasn't reappeared, and maybe it's time for it to reappear. So we can safely, let's say, loop up either side now of the end of break into the drop. And let's have a listen to what this sounds like. Let's just finally just check our Atmos when that comes back in, what's going to happen when that comes back in. So we've got the filter off. So any of this automation would be in play. I think we'll probably reorganize the automation in here for the filter. So we'll probably have some of that, but we'll do it ourselves. And again, let's just get the start of the clip. It's there. Let's make sure of that. We'll have that lined up over there. So at one point when I've been moving things around, it's got a little bit of out of alignment. Also the same with the gate track. That could actually just come all the way across here. And in that case, it's fine. All right, let's have a listen. We'll just open up the filter of the automation and have it all the way to the end of that. We don't use that anymore, and we'll work it. So we'll just copy our friend the atmosphere all the way across, and its gate track all the way to the very end where this marker is, where I'm hoping to end up. Also the kick drum I might as well just drag all the way over to there. That's kind of my goal. And I'm going to work this tension that we've kind of got as we have had across the track with the atmosphere here. And we can start by sort of actually copying this envelope a little bit over, and then we might adjust it a little bit, but it gives us a starting point. So we might just duplicate that right from there across and follow that sort of feeling to it. And we might also just come back to the mixer and that delay that we have here. I'm going to bring all of that down, get rid of that point. And we might also have a little bit of that action at the very end of the track here, going over into the very end of the track. So sometimes when you're following along with these kind of things, it's nice. As I said, if you've got a theme, don't forget about that theme. See if you can revisit it, see if it belongs somewhere else. It's the sort of gold that happens when you start making these themes as you go along. Alexander Vida, great to see more and more Ableton streamer. Hey Alexander, thanks for dropping a comment here. Nice to see you here in the live stream, and welcome to the channel. If you're returning, well, welcome back. If you're new here, well, hello. This is indeed an arrangement of a project that started 2 weeks ago, was a new track idea, started in real time, and last week I began to arrange it. Today we're finishing off the arrangement from the sort of main break. So we just did a bit of break building there. Going to take it to the outro, and then we're going to do a bit of MIDI controller action in a bit as well, a little bit of automation with the MIDI controller. So welcome on board, and if you've got any questions, do drop them in the chat. Feel free, and I'll do my best to answer them. And also, you know, say hello as you have done, and let us know where you're from if there's some of you out there tuned in to the stream at this point in time, live with us. All right, let's carry on here. So right here, there's a little phrase already in here. Let's get a couple of these kicks out there, at least one, maybe two, just for a nice little emphasis. And let's have, yes, I've used it a fair bit along here, but again, it was worth making this little transition of the reverse clap with the little down or up shifter in this case. And to highlight that transition, I'm going to bring the cymbal layer into play here. That's going to give us a nice little lift up in energy here as we work our way to what I think is going to be a bridge idea. So what I'm doing here is layering the cymbal on top of the hi-hat that played together in this particular instrument rack here. So I'm really happy about that section. That's working well. It's a nice kind of return. So again, if we're checking our energy, this was before the main break. So because that cymbal's out, we do have a difference. I think that's quite nice. It's okay, like I was explaining earlier, to do that. But it's not particularly flat. It's pretty similar, right? And if we just check our drop again, I think it drops into here quite nicely. This theme as well, but maybe not, just copy and paste. And now what I'm thinking here already after, so what have we got here? About 16 bars, I would believe. Yeah, so that's a 16 bar marker there. So I'm thinking here to have a little bit of a bridge. If it's too soon, as I said, at some point I'm going to massage this track a little bit, bearing in mind we're working our way here to this 20 marker as the sort of track length that I had in mind. It doesn't have to be 6 minutes, 30 seconds, but it's kind of what I had in mind. And at some point I'm either going to stretch, you know, I'm going to add a bit more either side of the main break potentially, or have a little play around with just how we get there. We're certainly not going to have this much outro, right? So the outro is probably going to be, let's add a few markers here and work our way to that 20. you know, the outro is probably going to start from there, from 22. So if I sort of grey out the kicks there, that's where the outro is. So we're not far off. We could also make the bridge longer here than just 8 bars, which is what I've grayed out where I've taken out the kicks. So we could try for a 16 bar bridge, but we don't want, again, for it to feel flat because we've just built the energy back up. Maybe we even push on and bring the bridge that much later. So we could try that. Perhaps we'll do that. We'll do another section through here. Lots of possibilities as you start to do this. Hopefully you can kind of see there's no one way is the right way. It's kind of like feeling it out and sort of feeling out what kind of works and what you think is the right answer here. So as I'm going into this area here though, that if I extend that front section, this area here, I do want to change in this area. Whatever that is, I'm not sure just yet. Is it going to be adding something? I don't think so. My thoughts are taking something away here. So perhaps it's the bit of percussion that comes out here. Perhaps it is that we go from the full arpeggio to the more minimal arp here. I think that could make sense. And maybe some percussion out. So let's maybe say the cabasa comes out. We'll have a listen to that. And we could also grey out the woodblock and try that as another option as well. One or the other. It's pretty too much to have both, as well as the change here. So just trying the cabasa. Let's try the woodblock instead. And sometimes you can go back in time and sort of look and see again, you know, what did I do over here when I took something out? But it's here we're sort of thinking on our feet a bit here. I kind of might try the cabasa and no woodblock, because I don't think, for example, if I was checking that, the cabasa was with woodblock. And I feel like the cabasa on its own there, the woodblock out, it kind of stripped the track down in a nice way, and it opened up some space there for things to sound a little bit quite different, right? Okay, so now we try a little bridge idea in here. So let's bring the bass over, clap over, the cymbal I'm not sure about, and the hi-hat, that combination, but let's drag it across so it's going to come back at some point towards the outro. But let's zero it out in that area. The cabasa, does it play through here? Again, sometimes I'll do this, I'll bring it across and then I'll just zero out those sections, so knowing that we can, you know, bring them in or out as we please. Does the ARP keep going through here? Maybe. Do we bring our little special ending to that ARP just here? That could be nice as that transition. Do we bring over any of our nice little builds and FX that we've made? Probably yes. Maybe it's time for a down into the bridge as well. Let's try that. When we get into this bridge, I'm definitely going to take out the operator bass again, I feel like in here. like that. Yeah, so the question is whether it's going to be, as I said, just an 8-bar bridge or a longer one. I think there's a possibility for a longer one for sure, but again, is it too long? Will it be not really fitting with the rest of the tension and release that's going on in the track? Also thinking maybe to bring this synth back in the pad at the end. So let's just kind of get that organized if we do that somewhere in here. Okay, so now let's try. Also, the vocal may well make a reappearance. There's lots I can do with this kind of little delayed section of the vocal, as well as the full section. So what have we got here? We've got a bunch of different clips that are possibilities. So let's try 3 over into here. Now let's loop up. It's a little bit further over. It's over to there. Let's have one of the 2 of the different variations that we've got here of melody. So it's mainly 3 and 2, fair enough. And let's have a listen to what that sounds like if we try 3 first. Helps when you turn it on. Okay, let's try 2. So I like that, but what's going to accompany it is a question here, and how does it again fit with what happened just beforehand? So there's a bit of a smoothing here or transition. I like the percussion that's mainly out. I like the bass coming through. Maybe it just stands on its own, exactly like that. I don't know what you think out there, but if you've got any thoughts, let me know. I know, Chavi, I didn't follow your guide before, but I appreciate that you put your thoughts in there. It's nice to sort of engage a bit. For sure, one time I will do a project where we can do it as a collab and you can just tell me what to do and then I'll follow those instructions. But in this case, I guess it's nice to bounce ideas off people, but in that case, I kind of figured it out myself, I guess, what I wanted to do in the end with it. So just trying out something here as well. Well, I kind of think that works. I hope you agree. Let's get the Atmos automation a little bit out at the end here and under control. So we want a little bit of tension at the very end of atmosphere here. And again, we've already built a theme of this in the past. so we can kind of take a look at that theme. Let me pull it back and have this little delay into that area. Okay, a little bit more of the Atmo. Yeah, thanks, Xavi. I'm glad you're on the same page as me. I think it sounds good alone as well. Yeah, I'm kind of trying to use the atmosphere a bit to that those two sort of like work together. But yeah, appreciate that. That was kind of what I was feeling as well. But yeah, we could add sort of maybe in there, or just some automation of it itself might be enough to do that. So, you know, to create the sort of feeling. You know, it's that's sort of something that you're sometimes looking for. It's very, you know, it's got enough, just playing around with things like the filter cutoff and stuff. It's got enough ability to kind of become something bigger and more powerful in itself. Or we could add an effect to it. We could have a phaser or a flanger or something could be nice, right? So we'll try and keep this sound, but build it into something more. So good suggestion about, you know, maybe a bit more background, but I reckon I would get that out of adding an effect to this or tweaking some automation to it just to try and make it more interesting in itself, as it's very basic at the moment. So thank you. Thanks for letting me know. So but the atmosphere and the vocal are also in there doing that a little bit. So again, we've created a nice little bit of a drop. So now we are nudging our way towards the outro here. Maybe we'll keep that length as it is, just an 8-bar bridge. I think it's cruel not to keep this synth going now into after the bridge. So let's bring it across. I think it would be very cruel just to sneak it in there, and it probably won't work if we just throw it away again. So it's nice to have it back. And that's why sometimes when you're working on your idea and you have a bunch of parts, what could be really nice is you don't quite know where it fits, but that's where bridges in tracks can be really great, because they could be somewhere where you can bring in something completely new, surprise the listener. It was in the beginning playing with everything in the idea in the beginning of the track, but then it didn't get used, and now it might just be exactly what we need. And it's kind of why I did write this note to myself previously, reincorporate melody as bridge outro idea. So this is what's kind of happening here. All right, so I would like to bring maybe that pad back in as definitely maybe the last bit of the outro type area. Let's say the melody carries on into here, that then swaps to that. I think we definitely have one of these little vocal FX type ones, maybe the with the biggest amount of automation on the delay, which is the one that I've been using at the end here sometimes. That could be, again, a nice little end of track kind of type of idea. See if I can copy it here, paste it. There we go. Along with the delaying of the Atmos. It might also reappear in here. We could maybe have it the full. Let's try that there. Just visually coming at the end into these changing of synths and things. Wood block, maybe that comes back in. But what I would start trying to do here now on the other side of the bridge, which I haven't sort of spoke about yet, so I want to try and remove something. So I can already see that the kind of, if you look back at the intro where we started, we had the claps in and the wood block at the very, very beginning. Now we don't have to finish the same as that, but we could mirror that a little bit and think about that. That's kind of how we're going to break it right down at the very end as well, that those two would be the last things. And what did I bring in first here at the intro? I brought in the hi-hat. So again, remembering this is a layered instrument, it looks like it's all one, but it's kind of a cymbal and a hi-hat working together. So what we could do here perhaps is, again, get rid of the cymbal there. So it's going to bring us back to just the hi-hat. Our filter's dialed off at the moment, so we've got no high cut or low pass filter action, but we might turn that on and we might use that to sweep this down into the outro. So again, we're not listening at the moment, but this is just me being guided by my thoughts and we will listen, of course, but I'm just kind of like putting things in as I'm thinking and going along here. So what do we reach at the highest of the open point of the filter frequency? Okay, well, we could actually have this at like 12 when it comes back in, so it'll be, filter will be right open pretty much, and then we can sweep it down and we get as low as 1.12, which is almost silence, I believe. So we can kind of have that happening around here, stretch that out, and let's see how that goes. So the symbol's going to come out there, Kabasa. Maybe that carries on through. Could we live without the clap in this area and it reappears here? That could be nice to try, because if we do zoom out again and look at the bigger picture, our friend the clap, we've hammered it hard through the track. It's definitely had plenty of airtime, right? We could also bring back this bass change here, which was in the track. It's quite a nice change, so we might try that, see what it sounds like. It's going to go from just a single held B to a really nice little bit of following the chords or following the melody of the track. So we'll try that there. We also want to see what we're doing in all of the automation here on that bass track, because the analog is currently out, that layer, and I'd like to get that back in here because I'm going to finish on the analog. So what we might do, doesn't seem like we used one a lot, interesting. So we might finish on the clip that is the one bassline clip. So let's just have a copy of that, not quite like that. Let's try that again. So we can get rid of all of that. All I want to see is where does the loop of it start? Right there, perfect. So we're going to butt that up there. That may or may not play into there. And at this point, so the question will be, does the analog play through here, or is it coming off? So the analog's on, then it goes off here. So that would mean it would just be the operator. So if we put the operator up, which is here. So sorry if this seems a little bit confusing, but it is kind of the way I have some layered racks here. And what I've done is made those layers come in and out at different points along the way. So maybe I bring the analog here, it's on its own in the bridge, and then it doesn't reappear, the operator reappears, and at the very end with the operator, we are going to go and steal this frequency, going down, lowering that frequency down. We're going to copy that and have that in that area there. And we'll see what that sounds like in a moment. And the speaker can go all the way to there, and then it's going to turn off. And maybe in this area here, we're going to copy our filtered kick drum, which is this clip over here. And we're definitely going to have some of that. We might have a whole last 8 bars of that filtered out. So it's just a high kind of kick with the filter, filtering it out. And in here, I definitely will make some phrasing as we go along here, so we can copy these little removals of kicks to highlight those phrases. And we might also have, again, some of our friendly little reverse claps and risers and downshifters. And I think we can definitely have one of these as the crescendo, the very end of the track there. One in the middle here. Maybe we'll just have a reverse clap in here for phrases. We'll see how we get on with that. So I reckon we're almost up to having a playthrough and seeing what this sounds like. And then we'll go from there. So let's try first of all the other side of the bridge. I think it would be rude not to have a little back to back. Let's get greedy here. Small disclaimer, this bass line may not work when it comes back in. We'll find out in a moment. With the melody, that is. Then again, it might work really well. That's obviously what we're hoping for. It was produced to work well. Let's try that again. Actually like it how it was a moment ago, I think. Right, so we've got something cooking there. I actually feel like the cymbal probably should be still here. It's a bit too big a drop there, so in energy that is. Okay, we definitely need in here, I think it's time for another one of these. And what you can see again, I've tried deliberately to do this. It's not a mistake. I've not been just copy pasting it in the same rhythmical position, right? So we used it over here, this little vocal chop I made with the delay. That's the first time I used it. There it does repeat in the same position, and here, but I spread those two apart. Then it kind of follows along in repetition, but the delay, the dry wet of the delay is opening, so we're getting a building delay on it. And then here, it's not in the same timing, right? It's coming in time, but in a different position. So don't be afraid to do that. Like, you know, I'm thinking here to put it in, but I'm thinking to put it somewhere out, but I just felt like it could be in here. Let's not have the double kick out on that one. And actually what I might do, something different again, just a variation. Let's put that kick in here. And let's actually have a double kick here. And with that double kick, let's have a down riser or downshifter. And this one isn't lined up properly. Not sure why. Must have not copied it over properly. I want to fix that. I want a nice one tight up against that line there. Same with my reverse clap, so a little bit of a error there from me for sure when I was copying it over, so good to see that. Spot it, fix it.
My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see.
So you can see as well, the kind of track is feeling like it could go on a lot longer now. So I think we've succeeded a bit in extending it in a way that makes sense for the parts and the music. Soon we'll pull back and kind of listen to the overall experience, but I think we've sort of sorted that out, that issue of stretching the track a little bit.
My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He says that only a few people are awake.
So, hearing a couple of things there, liking what I'm hearing. I was taking the wood block out as we went. I did hear another use of that. It's a bit addictive. Sometimes you get something like this, a bit like candy. It's a bit addictive. Keep dropping that in there, keep putting that transition effect in there. But if it works, it works. You know, sometimes I look for we could look for other ways to do it. But in this case, it's kind of fitting well with the track, and it was written from the track, right? It's a clap. It's the clap in the track that's playing all the fills and the actual clap elements. So it's not like we're, you know, using something that doesn't make sense. So the Cabasa, I'm thinking to take it out with a little bit of automation. So again, I'm going to get the filter frequency of it, start, and I'm using the instrument in this case, and I'm just going to bring that down so it sort of sweeps away gradually.
My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He says that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement.
So the hi-hat cymbal layer, it's kind of ended up funny because I was thinking more that the cymbal would go first, but the hi-hat's actually being filtered out here and the cymbal's sticking around. But again, I think I'll filter the cymbal out as well in the next loop.
Constant, total amazement. My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He says that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement. People are awake and
Okay, so let's do something a bit different with this clap. And we've got two different types of clap clips again. So one is from memory more stripped than two. So let's have the one from the start of the track here.
live in a state of constant, total amazement.
Actually, no, I'm going to change my mind about that. I'll just loop up this section here. And let's do this in little small steps here. Just make it a little bit different. Just rewriting it a little bit. So we've now got 8 bars of that pattern, and we can just grab that and copy it across. Maybe a bit more of the kick before the filtered kick. Okay, let's try that again. Maybe have another go at the double kick. This little phrase here. Okay, and maybe also this could make an appearance. What I did at the end of the break with the synth there, and maybe in this case We could make it all the way to the end and even longer, but let's try that. And yeah, even let's say that we just go backwards on that, bring these notes in as well, and let's bring them down, bring them in. Let's try that. Yeah, that was the idea. Finish off with that little flourish of that melody. So there we have now a bit more of arrangements. So now we need to, again, step back. Ideally, maybe you go away, grab a cup of tea or a coffee, reset your ears a little bit. But we're not going to do that. We're in a live stream here, and we're going to go through till, I guess, 5 p.m. local time here. So about another 30 minutes, somewhere around there. By the way, if you're here in the live stream, do feel free to say hello in the chat and introduce yourself. Let us know where you're listening from. I hope you're enjoying the stream. I hope you're finding this useful and you're taking away some tips and tricks about arranging tracks in Ableton in the arrangement view. Yeah, whether you're a seasoned pro or a beginner, I hope you're finding it helpful to your music production. That's the idea. That's what we're doing here. All right, so as I said, we want to step back now a little bit, kind of try and do our best job to evaluate it in its current state in the arrangement view. If I wasn't in a live stream, what would I do? Like I said, I'd go and have a nice break now. I'd also render the track out. So I would export this track now as a WAV file and go and listen to it. Because what am I judging at this point in time? I'm judging like now, does the arrangement flow? Does the tension, does the storytelling work? Do all the parts work? Because as you can see, like this is actually part 2, this video. It does take a little while to do this potentially. You know, I recorded over into here from the session view. So if we pop over there, the original, you know, rough idea of the track is all here in the scenes and in the session view. So, you know, it's moved from there to here, but it moved in a more organic way that was triggering scenes and recording. We didn't copy and paste. But we're getting sort of a different feeling from that. We've made some parts as we've gone along, such as the reverse clap and the down and up shifter, and then added some automation, mostly so far programming, but we're going to do a little bit of MIDI recording automation in a moment to add some more spice to it. But I think feeling wise, that's what we're kind of judging now, you know, and so we're going to do it in Ableton, but we're going to basically get over to the session view here, and we're going to use the overview. This is one that people sleep on an awful lot in Ableton Live, and you reveal that with, in the case of a Mac, Command Option O. So you can see it's the overlay, right? So I guess if you're on a Windows keyboard or PC, it should be Control, and I would imagine Alt O for Oliver. Right? And that means that you can be in the session view kind of, we're not looking at all the blocks, we're not looking at the arrangement visually, we're just going to be listening. But if we do need to check in, we can pull this down and you can actually see all the lines of where I've added markers, and you can see this black arrow that's appearing here, which means I can launch play from anywhere where I click that down, right? So I can click down, launch play, and jump around and play up here in the overview, right? So there's no real need to be sat here staring at this and convincing yourself that it's a banger of an arrangement. We don't know that yet. We've just kind of built it out. We're hoping it's good. But, you know, I want to evaluate it in a more neutral setting, but I can have that and resize it and still check in on what's going on there. And that's useful not only for what we're doing now, but for later when you're mixing, because you can also be over here adjusting all your mix down here, working on the track. And you might notice something happens in the mix, and you can look up here and say, that's it. What instrument is it? Go in there like a detective and fix that problem, because we stop the playback right there where that line is there. And we say, great, okay, that's where the problem is. And we go looking for it. So game changer really for me, because evaluating music and arrangements is not staring at this and not convincing ourselves by visually saying, oh, it changes here, this happens there, and therefore it's right. We need to evaluate that with our ears. And like I said, in an ideal world, I would be doing it over the WAV file, and Ableton would be closed, and then I'd start making notes bit by bit over time about what I'm going to change and thinking of the mix and automation. So we still got some notes up here: automate, ARP, cutoff, release, attack. We've got automate the gate, which is on the Atmos track, automate the Cabasa in. I'm not sure if I've done that, but if I haven't, well, I now did just do some automation with the filter, so that would be easy enough to do. And reincorporate the melody. So that one we can remove. That's actually happened, which is great. And I've also added movement. What do I mean by that? Well, it's not me moving in the chair. It's going to be the track having more, feeling about it, and movement, more modulation and automation that makes it come alive. Because if we go down through most of these tracks, it's still unmixed, really unautomated apart from a bit of basics. There's plenty we can do to also make it more 3D, more deep. And that can be, there are delays, there is some panning, there are some reverbs and things. So we've got a little bit of spatialness going on, but we can do a lot more to get some more kind of feeling in here. The wood block sound is nice because it pans around our head, and that's actually being automated along the track, but there's plenty more to do to extract more feeling. All right, that's enough of me rambling. Let's get to the start of the track, push play, and just have a little listen and see what we think. Is it feeling like where the breaks come in? Do they make sense where they are? Are they too long-winded? Do they give us the tension? Is there anything that pops up that we hear that we think, oh, that could be repeated or shouldn't happen, should happen? Let's have a go, and see what goes on. By the way, there is a limiter on the master track. That's just there for you, ladies and gents, to have a little bit more power in the music over the stream, but normally that limiter would not be there. And I'd also be looking a bit at, as we go, the mixing kind of side of things. Also, if you see me adjust anything as we're going, it's likely to be a volume or a panning knob or something like that, but I can obviously explain afterwards if you need me to tell you what I changed. Backwards for a second. That's the point. As you can see, I did not go to the arrangement view. I just clicked up here in that overlay, and I'm revisiting an earlier section of the arrangement. I kind of know where I am, so I'm just clicking up there and hitting play with the mouse, as easy as that.
said that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement. Constant, total amazement.
right. Quick sip of water. Well, as we were going along there, I was adjusting reverbs, a little bit of volume. I was still listening to the arrangement. Of course, if something caught my ear, I would have perhaps paused and gone and had a look. But like I said, I do feel like the track is really at a good point where it would be a case of rendering it now into a waveform. And that's how I would continue to judge whether that feeling and flow of this track is working to my taste and hopefully to your taste. I hope you enjoyed that listen and that playback and where we've got to. So I'm going to do a little save here. Absolutely want to make sure that I don't lose the progress that we've got here. So it's time to awaken. Let's say this is now the arrange. Just put a V in front of that. Save that. All right, so now what I want to try and do is get a little bit of automation sort of going along here. And one track that stood out to me since a long time is this arpeggio track. So if we sort of move our way along to it a little bit, let's say in this main kind of area towards the build up, we've got all this beautiful filter that we can expose and make that work for us in a good way. So what I want to do is I'm going to not use the mouse and click in points for that. I'm going to use the MIDI controller and I'm going to use my trusty little Novation launch control, and I'm just going to map the filter frequency of the meld in this case to that. One thing we could do while we're sort of testing that out, so if we just loop up a little section here and we push play, what we can try and establish is how low we want to go with this frequency, right? So I think it still sounds quite nice around here at this low. So that was 171. And sometimes people ask me like, well, how can you kind of like maintain that a little bit? Well, you know, and not sort of drift away from that. So back in the days when I first started doing this, I might have even written that down and made sure that when I was wiggling a knob around, right, I didn't really go below that number. But there's another way you can do this, and that would be to put the meld into its own little instrument rack. Right, so Control or Command G to group it into a rack, or you can right click and choose to group it from the menu. And then what we're going to do is just map that frequency to macro 1 over here in the rack here. And what we can then do is open up the map button over here, right? And if we just go up where the browser normally lives, we can now see this section over here. And what we can do is set the minimum amount to that value, right? So if we come in here and we drag the minimum value to, or we could type it in and hit return, 171 return, and we've now set up that macro, and we can return back from mapping here that the bottom of that macro is 171, right? Opening up all the way to the very high. And again, if we've got the same restriction at the other side, so let's push play. So we only want to open up to let's say, for example, it's 1.7, then we do exactly the same thing. We go back into the mapping here, and now on the max value, we can put 1,700, right? Or drag the mouse down, whichever way you want to do it, but we're looking for 1.7 is what it should be. And hit return, sorry, 1700. I often get confused myself when I'm doing this to get it right. There we go. Now we've got it, right? So same thing. Now we've set that macro. It can't go either side of that. And now we can just go happy days. Let's go recording. I'm going to do the last one because I'm actually going to let myself go all the way to the max. I think there's a bit more range in there, but I just wanted to show you. I'm happy with the bottom because that means that I can start from that value and go all the way down to there and know that that's going to work for me in a good way, right? And so now I'm going to do Command M to turn on my MIDI mapping mode of Ableton Live. I'm going to click on that macro, and I'm just going to go to my MIDI controller, pick a macro that's kind of convenient, twist the little knob. The X1 Novation I've got here has got lots of sliders and lots of knobs, which is perfect. You can now see the little automation number, so the MIDI CC message, it's assigned that knob to that particular control. Command M to come out of there, and now I can move my macro of my controller, take control of that filter frequency of the meld, right? And now what we can do is, when we're ready, open up this arpeggio track a bit. We can click in somewhere before the ARP starts, and we're going to arm that track. And we need to make sure that automation up here is also armed. So this little box up the very top here, that's our automation arm record box. So it's off. It's normally on by default, but you can obviously toggle that on and off. And if you don't want any sort of MIDI overdubbed, that is like new MIDI notes. So if I accidentally was playing a keyboard at the same time or something like that, I could add new notes to the clip. In this case, I can basically, put that on and sort of safeguard the MIDI, let's say, so that I'm not going to be overwriting anything in this sense. So you'll see what I mean as we get going. So let's hit record when we're ready up here. And we can already twist the knob when it starts. I've got a pre-roll there just to make sure. And actually, there wasn't anything happening in my test run. So let's just, there is, but let's just make sure we can actually see it down here, right? So that's a little bit more helpful. So that was what was just starting to happen. So if you turn show automation, then you'll be able to see what you're doing. So I'm going to Command Z my way back, start again, hit record from that point. I'm going to test my knob is working in a moment, test that macro. There it is. But I'm going to start at 171. I'll zoom out a bit. Something's not working right there, so I need to go and investigate what that might be. Something's not quite working right. So let me see what's going on there. I think I made a mistake when I've reset the mapping perhaps, but we need to check that out. So I'm down at 171. Let's just have a playthrough here so I can hear what's going on before I try recording again. Yeah, I see what's happened. Okay, so sometimes these things do occur. It was from me demonstrating what I was doing, but I've actually got the wrong order here because I didn't open it back up to the maximum range that the filter could go. I actually set it at the minimum range, so I was going from 171 down to sub frequencies, which is not what we want. Because the funny thing is, with the min max values here, you can actually right click and invert things, and sometimes you want the behavior to be flipped from the min to max. So we might get an example of that one day and I can show you, but in this case, that was my mistake a moment ago. So now that's fixed. Let's do a test run again. Should be fine. Absolutely, great. And so when you're doing this kind of thing as well, that is the part that we're going to do next. For me, again, obviously in a live stream, it works, but it's nice to be really in the right space when you're doing this. And again, I don't want to be really looking at the track too much or anything like that. I sort of, if anything, want to be staring out the window at a nice view or down at the MIDI controller and just feeling the music and just feeling like what needs to happen here. And ideally, again, eyes are shut, or you're just right in the zone and you're automating that filter to flow with the movement of the music. So hopefully that makes sense. That's the reason for doing this, is we're now going to have a much more organic filter frequency movement here than we would if we programmed it with the mouse. And that's the reason for having MIDI controllers and the ability to map macros and things like that, so you can get in there and get an organic kind of automation going on. So let's go for it. Let's just test out it's working. Yes, we are good to go. I'm a little earlier than the track starts. And again, this isn't set in concrete. If anything happens that I don't like, I can go back and start again. It's no problem. Or record different sections of the filter.
father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He said that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement. Constant, total amazement.
Second mistake of the day. All right, well, maybe not the second. I've gone into a loop. I wondered why things weren't progressing here. And yes, Heath has made a mistake, and that is that I have a loop on at the moment in a very short section of the track. So we can actually fix that. We obviously want to loop the project back up, but kind of where it worked, what we could do is pick up from that section. So let's just have a little listen here.
Only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement.
So I think what I'll probably do is just pick up from where the kind of break ended, and I got kind of stuck in that loop. So what I could do is kind of, just have a little look. Let's put that back where the end of the drop is. I kind of was down here at 358, something like that. Okay, so if I bring my controller down to about there, and then I'm going to delete that automation. Okay, and then I'm going to try from here to pick up again with the recording and start working again with the automation. Let's see how we go. We might be re-editing just in here a little bit, but as you can see in this case, and as Chavidia says, it is the real life indeed. Real live streams, just like being live on radio, things happen. It's quite funny really, I think. All right, so here we go, straight in here. There will be a pre-roll. So you can actually stop the recording now and pick up again the other side, right? If that's all we're doing, so we don't have to listen to all of this if we don't want to. Sometimes it can be nice to keep yourself in the flow and in the mood, but if we hit stop here, that's no problem. Again, we can come over to here. We can kind of, anything in between here can be deleted. We've just got a couple of bullet points, that's all. And we can kind of come in here again, and I can kind of go down to maybe at the very bottom, or I could start sort of somewhere in the middle, perhaps kind of around here is my idea of where I'm going to come in frequency wise, and we can restore obviously that automation, hit record, we're going to have a little lead in here, and then we're off again. And that will do, right? And there we have it. And of course, if you want to do any sort of tidy up type stuff, you can remove that little bit of MIDI clip at the start that was the lead in that wasn't important. The same as you can bring this back here all the way to where the automation stops. You can clear any points in the middle that are not important. Same here. Right, and you can get right into here, remove all of that if you wish. And we've got this lovely organic automation, right? That is the beauty of getting into that with the MIDI controller, and all of that can be adjusted. Like Ableton has a couple of really good tools that I could show you. So let's give that its own lane, pop it down the bottom here. And one thing you can do with these kind of, organic MIDI controller automations, you can right click and you can choose to simplify the envelope, which, as you can see, reduces all the points to a lot less. So if you are needing to do some edits, you can go in there now and tweak that around a bit with, the confidence that you have a lot less points to deal with than all of those little points. So that's a great feature. You can also turn on the pencil tool in Ableton Live and draw the automation, right? So if you do need to re-edit a little bit of this, if you hold Command or Control on a Mac or a PC, you can then draw by hand, freehand, and as you can see, you can actually get that pretty close to what you're doing with the MIDI controller. So that's sometimes something that I would do if I'm needing to edit. And you can also, when you highlight the automation, you've got all these lovely things that features where you can also change the shape, slopes, all sorts of things. So it's quite easy to edit and change and tweak and fix if there's something you feel that you didn't quite get right. So, maybe at the front here, I want to sort of take that point back a little bit, pull it right down, into here. And I could draw a little bit of, freehand there, but I'll kind of leave that as it is. And for now, again, that would be something that I would go back and listen to. I feel like because the filter's quite bright in that sound, I probably need to adjust my volume a little bit over the track because of what I've just done. So that would be something I might be working on next. Is I enjoy very much the automation that I've done there, but I would perhaps need to adjust the levels a little bit where it gets a bit bright. So there may be a bit of automation on this ARP where I've opened the filter right up and it's really bright. Maybe it's a bit loud and I might need to just automate that with a utility or something like that. So for today's stream, that's going to be a wrap. That's going to be definitely save that up again over the top of what I just saved a moment ago. So let's make sure it's all going in the right place and all that kind of thing, which it is, thankfully. And we're on the via range. I'm okay to overwrite that. In this case, I'm fine with that. So I'm going to replace that with a new updated automation. And what I just did there, I would also look, there is a lot more scope in this track for other tracks to do that. Maybe the bass line has a nice filter that we could automate the cutoff of that. Also to have a conversation with the ARP or do its own thing. That's the sort of thing I want you to start thinking about a bit. We could also automate many things, drum decays, envelopes of sounds, filter frequencies, dry wets of reverbs, delay feedback, delay dry wet, and make these kind of projects, particularly depending on the style of music you're making, a lot more alive, a lot more organic, not something static and mouse driven and very non-musical. So that's the start of this track, getting more organic, more feeling, on top of the composition, on top of the rough structure and arrangement, right? So what's left here? Well, there's more movement as I've got up the top here. We could say to my notepad MIDI track up here, we automated the ARP cutoff. I didn't do the release attack yet. So for example, we might edit that just to say, leave the attack and release there, because they are other candidates that I've heard earlier that could be automated. And again, think about that. When you have an instrument and you write some MIDI for it, how could that instrument potentially be automated? Check those things out way early on in the piece. Try and understand, well, how could this sound evolve and develop like that synth? Or the effects I'm using, how could that become 3D or different? Because we need a lot less tracks in our project if we understand how to do that. We're not adding new tracks and new elements, we're automating and adding effects and developing the sounds we have. So if we come to the peak loop here, we've only got 16 tracks in the project at this point in time, and I don't think there's any need for any more tracks other than little effects details perhaps. There's more modulation, more movement, more effects, maybe more automation, and that's how we'll get this even more feeling. So I've saved it. I'd render it out now, so let's do that. Let's grab the loop up the top here, pop up to the file, export audio, video. I want the master track. Before I do that, actually, I'm just going to quickly check there's nothing on the master. Well, there's the limiter. So I'm actually going to switch that off to do this render, because I do want to listen to this track back without any limiting on it. And I think my volumes are pretty good. I'm only making up sort of 4 dB in here, so I know already the mix level is around -4, more or less, playing through the track. So I'm okay with that to listen back to judge the arrangement further. So file, export audio video, the master track. I'm going to change the sample rate to 48K. That's what I normally work in, which is what I'm working in up here in the right of Ableton. WAV file, 24-bit depth, no dither, lovely. Export. Let's save it in the download folder, and as easy as that, and off we go. And now I would go, maybe later on today, I'll do it, at the end of the day, I'll get some distance away from this track now, and I'll have a nice listen, make some thoughts, see how it feels, see how it flows, and then come back to it in the next days or something and maybe add a little bit more detail to it and then mix it down and get a nice balanced mix, and then it would be mastering, and then it would be testing it out. So if you'd like to, if you're watching this back on replay or in real time and you'd like to see me to continue working on this track, do let me know in the comments below. Those kind of things, I don't really know from those of you who are watching this video whether that's something interesting or not for you to see. We could call it a day here, and then the next time I'm in a live stream I'm doing something else. It's just interesting to know those things. So don't ever be shy about letting me know if there's something you really want to see, something about Ableton Live, a certain sound, a certain producer's music, or something like that, and I potentially could turn that very easily into a live stream, and I'd be very happy to do that. So as always, I will leave at the end of this stream. It does take a while because YouTube effectively analyzes the stream, I guess, for any issues or copyright or things like that. So once that's done, I will put an end card to a video that I suggest watching after this one. If you want to keep going, have a bit of a binge, watch a bunch of videos on the channel, I'll suggest one that I think really ties into this. And remember as well, or if you didn't know that, this is part of a project. It's now the 3rd video of the series. There is the new idea that I did in real time, then there was the starting of this arrangement, and now this is part 2 of that arrangement. So already there are 3 videos all linked to each other, but I will definitely put one that I recommend for you that you should enjoy. at the end of the stream here. And as always, if you have enjoyed the video and you're enjoying the content on the channel, any support is much appreciated. A thumbs up, drop a comment, share it with your mates, you know, consider subscribing to the channel, ringing the bell so you know when I'm dropping a new video. All of that stuff's much appreciated. I notice, as most of us who are on YouTube, that, you know, often it's heavily non-subscribers watching videos as opposed to subscribers. So if you do like what I do here, that would be much appreciated. Anyway, that's enough from me. Have a fantastic rest of your Sunday. Take care of yourselves and enjoy the weekend, start of the new week. And I will catch you in a new live stream next weekend on the Sunday. Until then, take care and catch you then. Ciao for now, everybody. Bye-bye. Ciao.